I never thought the worst betrayal of my life would start with a philosophy conference in Tucson. My name is Tom, and for 15 years I believed I knew everything about my wife Megan. We met during graduate school. I was knee-deep in molecular biology research. She was finishing her doctorate in philosophy. We connected over late-night coffee sessions in the campus library, debating everything from scientific ethics to whether free will actually exists. She was brilliant, challenging, and had this way of making me see the world differently. When she accepted my proposal on a warm Phoenix evening, overlooking the city lights from Camelback Mountain, I felt like the luckiest man alive. Our life together had settled into a comfortable rhythm. We bought a modest house in central Phoenix, nothing fancy but ours, a 3-bedroom ranch style with a backyard big enough for our 2 kids to play in. Our daughter Naomi had just turned 12, and our son was 9. I worked at a private research institute studying cellular regeneration, the kind of work that consumed your thoughts even when you left the lab. Megan taught ethics and modern philosophy at Arizona State University, and she was good at it. Her students loved her, her colleagues respected her, and she'd been published in several academic journals. The years had been kind to us, or so I thought. We'd survived the sleepless nights of infancy, the chaos of toddlerhood, the challenges of balancing 2 demanding careers with parenthood. We had our routines, Sunday morning pancakes that I'd make while Megan slept in, Friday movie nights with the kids, the annual camping trip to Sedona every October. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but whose is? We had arguments about household chores, about whose turn it was to handle school pickups, about money and schedules, and all the mundane friction of shared life. But underneath it all, I thought we were solid. I thought we were a team. My work at the Research Institute was demanding but fulfilling. We were on the verge of a breakthrough in understanding how certain cells could regenerate damaged tissue, work that could have massive implications for treating degenerative diseases. I'd spend long hours in the lab, running experiments, analyzing data, collaborating with my team. Megan's work was equally consuming. She was passionate about teaching, about engaging students in difficult philosophical questions. She'd come home talking about classroom debates, about students who'd had breakthroughs in understanding complex ethical theories. We were busy, maybe too busy. But isn't that just how life is when you're raising kids and building careers? Megan seemed more energized than usual that March. She'd been selected to present a paper at a regional philosophy conference in Tucson, about 90 miles south. It was a 2-day event, nothing unusual. She'd attended plenty of conferences over the years. Academic conferences were part of the job, opportunities to network, share research, stay current in your field. I encouraged her to go, even offered to handle the kids' schedules solo that weekend. Naomi had a soccer game Saturday morning, and our son had an art class Saturday afternoon. I'd juggle it all. That's what partners do. Are you sure? Megan had asked. I know it's a lot with both their activities. We'll be fine, I'd assured her. This is important for your career. Go, network, present your paper. Knock them dead. She'd smiled, kissed me, thanked me for being supportive. What I didn't know was that Roy was going to be there. Megan had mentioned him casually over the years, a former classmate from her graduate program who'd ended up teaching at University of Arizona. They'd reconnected professionally, both working in similar fields. I'd never met him, never felt the need to. Why would I? I trusted my wife completely. The conference was on a Thursday and Friday. Megan left early Thursday morning, kissing me goodbye, reminding me about Naomi's soccer practice and our son's dentist appointment. Normal. Everything was normal. But Friday evening, when she came home, something felt different. Not dramatically, she wasn't distant or cold. If anything, she seemed lighter, almost giddy. She talked enthusiastically about the panels she'd attended, the debates she'd participated in. She mentioned Roy exactly once, saying it had been nice to catch up with an old colleague. I thought nothing of it. That weekend, we went back to our normal routine. Saturday morning soccer game. Naomi's team won 3-1. And she scored one of the goals. I took both kids out for ice cream to celebrate. Sunday morning pancakes, then an afternoon at the botanical garden. Megan seemed fully present, engaged with the kids, laughing at our son's jokes, helping Naomi with homework Sunday evening. But looking back now, I can see the small signs I missed. The way she checked her phone slightly more often. The small smile that would cross her face when she read certain messages. The way she angled her screen away from me when I walked past. Over the next few weeks, I noticed she was on her phone more. Not constantly, but more than usual. She'd smile at texts, then quickly put her phone face down. She started mentioning more conference opportunities, more reasons to travel to Tucson. Building professional networks, she called it. Essential for my career trajectory. In early April, she mentioned a possible collaboration with colleagues at University of Arizona. Nothing formal yet, but potentially exciting. It might mean more trips down to Tucson, more working sessions. Was I okay with that? Of course I was okay with it. I wanted to support her career. I knew how important professional development was, how competitive academia could be. If she needed to travel more for work, we'd make it work as a family. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But in late April, something shifted. Megan mentioned another conference, this one in Albuquerque in early May, but she'd need to stop in Tucson first to collaborate with Roy on a joint paper they were considering. She'd be gone 3 days. When I suggested the kids and I could come along, make it a family trip, she shut it down quickly. Too much work to do, too distracting, she needed to focus. That response bothered me. In the past, when she'd had conferences in interesting cities, we'd sometimes made family trips out of them. I'd handle the kids during her work hours, then we'd explore together in the evenings. It was a way to combine her professional obligations with family time. Her immediate rejection of the idea felt wrong somehow. That's when the doubt crept in. Not suspicion exactly, but a nagging feeling I couldn't shake. I started paying more attention. I noticed she'd changed her phone password, something she'd never done before. When I asked about it casually, she said she'd been having security concerns after reading an article about phone hacking. Plausible, but the timing felt convenient. I noticed she was dressing slightly differently for work. Not dramatically, but she seemed to put more effort into her appearance on days when she mentioned having meetings or video calls with her collaborators in Tucson. I noticed that on the weekends, she'd sometimes disappear to her office for long stretches, saying she was working on the book or preparing lectures. But when I'd check on her, bringing coffee or asking a question, she'd sometimes quickly minimize windows on her computer, as if hiding something. I'm a scientist. I deal in evidence, in proof, in reproducible results. I hated what I was about to do, but I needed to know. I couldn't function in uncertainty. I called Sebastian, my closest friend since college. He was a software engineer, worked remotely, had a flexible schedule. Over beers one evening, I told him everything, the conferences, the phone behavior, the feeling that something was off. I asked him if he'd be willing to drive to Tucson when Megan was there next, just to see if my paranoia was justified or if I was losing my mind. Sebastian didn't judge me. If you need peace of mind, I'll do it, he said. But Tom, are you sure you want to know? I wasn't sure. But I couldn't live in limbo either. Megan left for Tucson on a Wednesday morning in mid-May. She'd be staying 2 nights, Wednesday and Thursday, supposedly working on research with Roy. She'd given me the name of her hotel, called me when she arrived, everything seemingly transparent. Sebastian drove down that Wednesday afternoon. I'd given him Roy's name, and Megan had mentioned once where he worked. It wasn't hard to find him on the university website, assistant professor of philosophy, even had his photo posted. Sebastian found the building where Roy's office was located and waited. The text came through at 6:47 p.m. Wednesday evening. Found them. They just left his office building together, getting in the same car. I'm following. My hands shook as I read it. Maybe it was innocent. Colleagues having dinner. Discussing their paper. The next text came 20 minutes later. They're at a restaurant. North Campbell Avenue. Looks intimate. Corner booth. He's touching her hand. I felt sick. I asked Sebastian to keep watching. At 9:15 p.m., they left the restaurant. Drove to a hotel. Not the one she told you. They went inside together. Both had luggage. Tom, I'm sorry. I sat in my home office, staring at my phone, feeling like the floor had dropped away. My kids were asleep down the hall. My wife, the woman I'd built a life with, who'd stood beside me for 15 years, who'd given me 2 beautiful children, was in a hotel room with another man. Sebastian stayed in his car watching. At 11:30 p.m., he texted. Lights in their room just went out. I'm heading back to Phoenix. Call me when you're ready to talk. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't eat. I kept replaying our entire marriage in my head, looking for signs I'd missed. Had this been going on since that first conference in March? Longer? Was Roy the only one, or had there been others? When Megan came home Friday afternoon, she was cheerful. She hugged me, asked about the kids, showed me some books she'd picked up at a Tucson bookstore. I played along. I smiled. I listened to her lies about the productive sessions she'd had with Roy on their research paper. Every word felt like a knife. I needed more information before I confronted her. I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Over the weekend, while Megan was at home, I checked our credit card statements online. There it was, charges from that hotel Sebastian had followed them to. 3 different times over the past 2 months. Not the hotels she'd told me she was staying at. But here's what made it worse. I found charges from that hotel going back further. November. February. This hadn't started in March. The Tucson conference in March was just when I'd started noticing changes. She'd been lying to me for at least 6 months, maybe longer. I needed to know how deep this went. Monday morning, after Megan left for ASU and the kids for school, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her laptop. She'd left it at home that day. Her email was still logged in. The messages between her and Roy painted a picture I didn't want to see. Intimate conversations, plans to meet, references to hotels, to stolen moments, to how complicated everything was. In one email from April, Roy had written, "I know you can't leave him right now, but someday we'll have our chance. What we have is real, Meg. More real than what you have in Phoenix." Her response, "I know. I feel it too. But the kids, the timing isn't right. We just need to be patient." They were planning a future together. This wasn't just an affair. It was a full relationship, complete with dreams and promises. I took screenshots of everything, backed them up to a cloud drive. Then I spent the next several days planning my next moves with cold, calculated precision. First, I consulted a divorce attorney. Arizona is a community property state, but I learned that if I could prove adultery and that marital funds had been used to support the affair, I'd have leverage. The attorney advised me to document everything, remain calm, and prepare for battle. Second, I needed to protect my relationship with my children. I wasn't going to let Megan's betrayal destroy their sense of stability, but I also wasn't going to let her rewrite history and paint me as the villain. I started keeping detailed notes of my parenting time, my involvement in their lives, everything that demonstrated I was a present, active father. Third, and this is where things got nuclear, I decided that everyone needed to know the truth. Not out of cruelty, out of justice. Megan had built her career on ethics, on teaching students about moral philosophy and right action. The hypocrisy was staggering. I waited until a Friday in late May. Megan had mentioned she was presenting at a departmental seminar that afternoon. For PM, she'd said, in front of faculty and graduate students. It was a big deal for her, a chance to showcase her latest research. That morning, I called in sick to work. I spent hours preparing a detailed document outlining the affair, dates, hotels, credit card charges, screenshots of emails, with my kids' names and personal details redacted, but everything else visible. I included a timeline showing how Megan had lied about conference locations, how she'd used our marital funds to finance her relationship with Roy. At 3:30 p.m., I created an anonymous email account. At 3:45 p.m., I sent the document to every faculty member in Megan's department, including the department chair. The subject line, Dr. Megan Thompson's Ethics, a case study in hypocrisy. I also sent it to Roy's department at University of Arizona. Then I sent a separate email to Megan's personal account with the subject line, I know everything. At 4:10 p.m., my phone exploded with calls from Megan. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, first confused, then panicked, then crying. I listened to each one without emotion. At 4:30 p.m., she came home. I was sitting in the living room, the printed-out email exchanges on the coffee table in front of me. She walked in, her face red and blotchy from crying. "Tom, I can explain." "Don't," I said quietly. "I don't want to hear explanations. I don't want to hear excuses. I want you to pack a bag and leave. The kids are at Naomi's friend's house for a sleepover birthday party, and our son is at my mother's. They'll stay there through the weekend. You and I are going to have this conversation without them present." She collapsed onto the couch. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." "How long has it been going on, Megan? And don't lie to me anymore. I have all the evidence I need." She told me everything. The affair had started in November, at a different conference. She and Roy had dated briefly in graduate school, years before she met me. When they reconnected, old feelings resurfaced. It was emotional at first, then physical. She'd been planning to tell me, she claimed, but never found the right time. "You had 6 months," I said. "You could have told me at any point. Instead, you lied. You looked me in the eye every single day and lied." I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. You destroyed our marriage. You destroyed our family. You destroyed 15 years of trust for what? Nostalgia? A midlife crisis? Some fantasy about recapturing your youth? She had no answer for that. Over the weekend, while the kids were away, Megan stayed with a friend. I met with my attorney again Monday morning. By Tuesday, divorce papers were filed. I requested primary custody of the kids, the house, and a division of assets that reflected the fact that marital funds had supported her affair. But the professional fallout was what really devastated her. By Monday morning, the story had spread through ASU's philosophy department like wildfire. Roy faced similar consequences at University of Arizona. While neither could be fired for an affair per se, the ethics violations, a senior professor using university resources and time to conduct an extramarital relationship, created massive problems. Both faced formal reviews by their respective universities. Megan called me Tuesday evening, begging me to help her, to tell the departments it was a misunderstanding. I refused. You taught ethics, Megan. You stood in front of students and lectured them about integrity, about moral duty, about the importance of honesty in relationships. And all the while, you were living a lie. That's not my fault. That's yours. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Arizona's community property laws meant we split most assets, but I got the house. Megan agreed to it to avoid a prolonged custody battle. I got primary custody of Naomi and our son, with Megan having them every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. The kids struggled. Naomi was old enough to understand something had broken between her parents, though I kept the specific details from her. I told her that sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they love, and that her mom and I couldn't stay married, but we'd both always love her and her brother. It wasn't enough. She was angry, confused, grieving the loss of the family she'd known. But I did my best. Through it all, I learned something about Roy I hadn't expected. He wasn't some villain who'd deliberately targeted a married woman. He was divorced himself, had been for years. In his mind, he and Megan were going to build a life together once she left me. He'd believed her promises. But here's the thing about affairs, they're built on fantasy, not reality. When everything came crashing down, when Megan's reputation was damaged and she was facing professional consequences, when the affair was no longer exciting and secret, but exposed and messy, Roy backed away. I learned this from Valentine, a colleague of Megan's who'd reached out to me months after the divorce. She told me Megan had tried to continue the relationship with Roy, had even driven to Tucson multiple times after our separation. But Roy had told her he needed space, that things had gotten too complicated, that maybe they'd rushed into things. By the fall, 6 months after I'd exposed the affair, Megan was alone. Roy had started dating someone else, another professor, single this time, and Megan was left trying to rebuild a life she'd demolished. I wish I could say I felt satisfaction in her downfall, but mostly I felt empty. I'd loved this woman. I'd built a life with her, and she'd thrown it all away for something that evaporated the moment it was exposed to daylight. A year after the divorce, I was rebuilding. I'd thrown myself into work, into being present for my kids, into therapy to process the betrayal and anger. Naomi was slowly adjusting. She'd started talking to a counselor too, which helped. My son was younger, more resilient in some ways, though he missed having both parents in one house. I ran into one of Megan's former colleagues at a coffee shop one Saturday morning. We'd met a few times at university functions years ago. She was kind enough not to mention the divorce directly, but she did tell me that Megan had taken a position at a smaller college in New Mexico. A fresh start, away from the wreckage she'd created. Is she happy? I asked, surprising myself with the question. The colleague hesitated. I don't think so, but maybe that's appropriate. I thought about that conversation for days afterward. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 15 years, wanted her to find peace, wanted her to learn from her mistakes. But another part of me, the part that still woke up some nights angry and betrayed, thought she deserved every bit of unhappiness she felt. What I knew for certain was this: trust, once shattered, doesn't heal. You can't go back to innocence. The marriage I'd had, the one I'd believed in, had never really existed. It had been built on lies, maintained through deception, and I refused to live in a lie anymore. My kids would grow up knowing that integrity matters, that choices have consequences, that love without honesty is just an illusion. Would they be damaged by their mother's betrayal, by the divorce, by the family that split apart? Probably. But they'd also learn resilience. They'd learn that sometimes the right choice is the hardest one. As for Megan and Roy, I heard through mutual acquaintances that they'd briefly attempted to reconnect almost a year after the divorce, after Roy's rebound relationship ended. But whatever spark they'd thought they had was gone. The affair had thrived in secrecy and forbidden excitement. In the harsh light of reality, with everyone knowing their story, with professional consequences and personal wreckage all around them, there was nothing left. Megan had blown up her life for a relationship that couldn't survive outside the shadows. Sometimes I wonder if she regrets it. If she lies awake at night thinking about what she lost, not just me, but the family we'd built, the home, the respect of her colleagues, the trust of her children. If she wishes she could go back and make different choices. But we don't get do-overs. We live with our decisions. I'm building a new life now, one based on truth instead of comfortable lies. It's harder, lonelier sometimes, but it's real. My kids are healing. I'm healing. And I know that whatever comes next, I'll face it with my eyes open, never again willing to ignore the evidence in front of me just because the truth hurts. That's what science taught me. Follow the data, even when it leads somewhere you don't want to go. That's what Megan's betrayal taught me too. Sometimes the worst discoveries are the most important ones. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.